This summer, that player isn't Jude Bellingham, it isn't Declan Rice, and it isn't a Champions League superstar. Instead, it's a 22-year-old midfielder playing for AFC Bournemouth. His name? Alex Scott. Just a year ago, very few people believed Bournemouth possessed one of England's most valuable young midfielders. Today, some of the biggest clubs in world football are watching him. Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester United, Liverpool, Newcastle United, Manchester City, Tottenham Hotspur, even Aston Villa, all connected to one name, Alex Scott. So here's the question. What makes one player attract almost every Premier League giant? Because clubs don't spend £80 million based on potential alone. They invest that kind of money because they believe a player can transform their future. And Bournemouth know exactly what they have. According to the latest transfer reports, the club has already rejected Chelsea's opening offer worth £64 million, not because they aren't interested in selling, but because they believe Alex Scott is worth significantly more. Their valuation? Around £80 million. That's an extraordinary number for a player who is only 22 years old. But perhaps the price tag tells us something much bigger. Bournemouth don't see Alex Scott as just another midfielder. They see him as one of the foundations of their future. And maybe they're right. Last season changed everything. Bournemouth weren't expected to compete with England's elite. Most experts predicted another difficult campaign. Instead, they shocked everyone. Week after week, the Cherries played fearless football. They defeated stronger opponents, collected crucial victories, and achieved something that once seemed impossible, a top-6 finish. Even more remarkably, qualification for the UEFA Europa League. It wasn't just a successful season, it was a statement. A statement that Bournemouth were no longer satisfied with simply surviving. They wanted to compete, to challenge, to build something bigger. And at the center of that remarkable journey was Alex Scott. His intelligence, his composure, his ability to control the tempo, his willingness to work without the ball. These qualities didn't just impress Bournemouth supporters, they caught the attention of scouts across England. Suddenly, the phone started ringing. Reports linked Chelsea with an aggressive move. Arsenal and Manchester United quickly emerged among the leading contenders. Liverpool and Newcastle continued monitoring the situation. Manchester City, Tottenham, Aston Villa, one by one, the list kept growing. When that many clubs are watching the same player, it usually means one thing. They all see something special. But here's where the story becomes even more interesting. Alex Scott still has 2 years remaining on his Bournemouth contract, yet reports also suggest that he has turned down a new deal. That single detail changes everything, because now, time becomes Bournemouth's biggest opponent. Do they keep one of their brightest stars and risk losing negotiating power in the future, or do they accept an enormous transfer fee and begin the next chapter without him? For Bournemouth, this isn't just about money. It's about ambition. It's about identity. It's about proving that qualifying for Europe wasn't the end of the journey. It was only the beginning. And somewhere in the middle of this transfer saga, one young midfielder is carrying the expectations of an entire football club. But before we can understand why Europe's biggest clubs are fighting for Alex Scott, we first need to understand the player himself, because his story didn't begin in the Premier League. It began long before the cameras arrived. And that's where our journey continues. Success changes everything. One incredible season can completely rewrite a player's future. Not long ago, Alex Scott was simply another talented midfielder working hard to establish himself. Today, his name dominates one of the biggest transfer stories of the summer. But here's what makes this saga so fascinating. It's not just one club trying to sign him. It's almost everyone. Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester United, Liverpool, Newcastle United, Manchester City, Tottenham Hotspur, Aston Villa. Each club has different ambitions, different managers, different styles of football. Yet somehow, they've all arrived at the same conclusion. Alex Scott is worth fighting for. That raises another question. What are these clubs seeing that makes them willing to spend tens of millions of pounds? According to the transfer report, Bournemouth's remarkable season changed the way people looked at both the club and its players. Finishing in the Premier League's top 6 and qualifying for the UEFA Europa League didn't just surprise English football, it forced every major club to pay attention, because successful teams don't produce quality players by accident. When a club exceeds expectations, scouts begin asking difficult questions. Who made the difference? Who controlled the midfield? Who stayed calm under pressure? Who has the potential to become even better? Again and again, the answer seemed to lead back to Alex Scott. Then came Chelsea, the first club to make a serious move. According to the report, Chelsea submitted an opening bid worth £64 million. For most football clubs, that would be impossible to ignore. A life-changing amount of money, an offer capable of transforming future transfer plans. But Bournemouth didn't hesitate. They said no, not because the money wasn't attractive, but because they believed it still underestimated the player's true value. Their message was clear. Alex Scott is not available at that price. The club values him at around £80 million. That decision sent a powerful signal across Europe. If Chelsea couldn't convince Bournemouth with 64 millones de libras, every other club now understood exactly how difficult this transfer would become. Suddenly, this wasn't just another transfer negotiation. It became a battle of patience, a battle of ambition, and perhaps a battle of timing. Because football transfers aren't decided by money alone. Sometimes, the biggest question isn't who can afford the player. It's who can convince the club to let him go. And at this moment, Bournemouth appeared determined to protect one of their most valuable assets. But every transfer story has another side, because while clubs negotiate, players also make decisions. According to the report, Alex Scott still has 2 years remaining on his current contract, yet he has reportedly turned down fresh terms. That doesn't automatically mean he wants to leave. The report doesn't say that, but it does create uncertainty. And in football, uncertainty changes everything. Now every interested club has hope. Every supporter begins dreaming. Every journalist starts asking the same question. Where will Alex Scott play next season? Will he remain the heartbeat of Bournemouth's ambitious project? Or will one of England's biggest clubs finally convince both the player and Bournemouth that the time has come for a new chapter? The answers haven't arrived yet, but one thing is already certain. This transfer saga is only getting started. In football, there is something even more valuable than money: competition. Because the moment several elite clubs begin chasing the same player, everything changes. The price changes, the pressure changes, and sometimes the player's future changes forever. That is exactly where Alex Scott finds himself today. This is no longer a simple transfer story. It has become one of the most closely watched battles of the summer. According to the transfer report, Chelsea have already shown serious intent. An opening bid has been rejected. But Chelsea aren't the only club paying attention. Arsenal, Manchester United, Liverpool, Newcastle United, Manchester City, Tottenham Hotspur, Aston Villa, all have been linked with the Bournemouth midfielder. Some are described as monitoring the situation. Others are listed among the leading contenders. Together, they represent some of the biggest names in English football. That alone tells us how highly Alex Scott is being regarded. Think about it for a moment. When one club shows interest, it could simply be an opportunity. When two clubs are interested, it becomes a negotiation. But when almost every major Premier League club is watching the same player, it becomes a race where timing is just as important as money. Every passing week brings new questions. Will another club submit a formal offer? Will Bournemouth change their position? Or will the club remain firm and keep one of their most valuable players? At this stage, no one knows. And perhaps that's exactly what makes this story so compelling. Because transfer sagas are rarely decided in a single meeting. They're built through patience, conversations, negotiations, and difficult decisions behind closed doors. For Bournemouth, the situation is delicate. The club has already shown that it won't accept an offer it believes undervalues Alex Scott. Rejecting Chelsea's opening proposal sent a clear message. If another club wants to sign him, it will likely have to meet Bournemouth's valuation. That decision immediately changed the market. Every interested club now understands that negotiations will not be easy. The price has been established. The expectations are clear. Now the question becomes, who is willing to take the next step? Will one club break away from the pack? Or will this become one of those transfer stories that lasts until the final days of the window? Another important detail adds even more intrigue. According to the report, Alex Scott still has 2 years remaining on his current contract. That gives Bournemouth a stronger position than many clubs facing similar situations. At the same time, the report also notes that fresh contract terms have been turned down. The report does not explain the reasons, and it does not say that a transfer is inevitable. But it does leave one important question hanging over this entire story. What happens next? For now, The answers remain inside meeting rooms, between club executives, agents, and decision-makers. Outside, supporters can only wait, refresh the latest headlines, watch every update, and wonder whether one phone call, one offer, or one decision could completely change the future of both Alex Scott and AFC Bournemouth. Because sometimes, the biggest drama in football doesn't happen on the pitch. It happens long before kickoff, which is a decision that could define Bournemouth's future. Every football club eventually reaches a crossroads, a moment when one decision can shape everything that follows. For Bournemouth, that moment may have already arrived. This isn't simply about accepting or rejecting a transfer offer. It's about deciding what kind of football club Bournemouth wants to become. For years, smaller Premier League clubs have faced the same challenge: develop talented players, then watch bigger clubs come calling. Some accept the money, some fight to keep their stars. Very few manage to find the perfect balance. Now, Bournemouth face that exact dilemma. According to the report, the club has already rejected Chelsea's opening offer of £64 million, not because they don't understand the value of that money, but because they believe Alex Scott is worth even more, around £80 million. That valuation says something important. Bournemouth are not negotiating from a position of fear. They're negotiating from a position of belief. They believe Alex Scott is one of the most valuable assets in their project, a player capable of helping the club compete at an even higher level. And perhaps, that belief has become even stronger after a remarkable season that ended with Bournemouth securing a top-6 finish and qualification for the UEFA Europa League. European football changes everything. It raises expectations, it increases pressure, and it demands greater squad quality than ever before. Losing one of your key players before such an important season could completely change those ambitions. But football is never that simple. Every player dreams of competing at the highest level. Every major club wants to strengthen its squad, and every transfer window creates opportunities that may never come again. Some opportunities are impossible to ignore, others are impossible to replace. That is why this story remains unfinished, because according to the report, Alex Scott still has 2 years remaining on his current contract. At the same time, he has reportedly turned down a new contract offer. The report doesn't explain why. It doesn't confirm that he wants to leave, and it certainly doesn't reveal what will happen next. Instead, it leaves everyone with the same question. What is Alex Scott's next chapter? Will Bournemouth stand firm and build their European adventure around one of their brightest young stars? Will another Premier League giant decide that £80 million is a price worth paying? Or will this become one of the longest transfer sagas of the summer? Right now, nobody knows. Not the supporters, not the media, perhaps not even the clubs involved. Because football has a way of surprising everyone. One phone call, one meeting, one signature can change everything. Until then, Alex Scott remains a Bournemouth player, a player admired across the Premier League, a player valued at around £80 million, and a player whose future has become one of the biggest stories of this transfer window. Whatever happens next, one thing is certain. This story isn't just about Alex Scott. It's about ambition, loyalty, patience, and the difficult choices every football club must eventually make. Because sometimes, the biggest victory isn't signing a superstar. Sometimes, it's having the courage to keep one, or the wisdom to let one go at exactly the right moment. The next chapter hasn't been written yet, but when it is, the football world will be watching. If you enjoyed this documentary, leave your prediction in the comments below. Should Bournemouth keep Alex Scott for another season, or should they accept a massive offer and begin a new chapter? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more in-depth football documentaries, transfer stories, and Premier League analysis. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next football story.